Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense. We've been on this kind of end times, the signs, what to look for, things. I want to just challenge you tonight very quickly to do something that is extraordinary. Last night at our Bible study, we were talking about James. We're in chapter 1. We were in verse 1 through 5, but I want to talk about verse 5, right? If you go there and you read it, it's, does any of you lack wisdom? Right? Then you should ask God, who gives generously, right? Is going to give it to you, right? I need you to understand, when it comes to this end time stuff, we have a problem. We were talking about it today with a group of pastors, and we were talking about the fact that all of these things, right? We got people who are talking definitively on things that the Bible tells us we don't know, right? Again, God did not lay out every single detail for the end times, right? No spreadsheet, right? For here's what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. You have people who believe that each one of the seals, each one of the trumpets, each one of the bowls of wrath, like each one is going to be done in order, and they got to finish one to do the other one. And then you got people who say, nope, we're already in the first few, right? We've already seen a whole bunch of stuff. Right? And then you got people who are like, oh, no, that was already all done before, and we're not even going to have to worry about any of this. We've already seen all this stuff. Right? Again, we've been under the bowls of wrath for forever. Right? Like since 70 AD. Like there's all kinds of things going out there. We got people who have timelines, and they put it on their stage, and this has got to happen, and this has got to happen, and this has got to happen, and this has got to happen. Right? We got a bunch of definitiveness. And God says that one of the hardest things for a man is to understand that God's going to use the simple to confound the wise. We love wise people. We love people, right, who are going to make us sound smart, and then we can pay attention to them, and then we can look at them and say, oh, look at how smart they are. And this person says this, and this person says this, and this person says this. The truth is, here's what God says to do. You ought to look at all this end time stuff, and you ought to see the signs, and you ought to be concerned that it's coming. And then you ought to stop right there and go, but I don't know when, and I don't know all the things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask God for wisdom. Do you know what asking God for wisdom means? You got to say the hardest words in life, right? I was wrong. Hardest words. I don't know is the hardest words, right? Anything that has to do with I don't know what's going on, God. Right? We can't stand saying that. But if you're listening to people who are telling you definitively, here's how the end time works, here's everything about it, here's all the things, you need to take a step back. Because they might have to at some point say they were wrong about some stuff. Listen, there are things that are going on with this whole end time stuff that if you're wrong and you're preaching to people a certain thing, you're in trouble. You're in deep trouble because you're telling people stuff that may or may not be true. You can be as absolutely convinced in a pre-tribulation rapture that there is. You can be absolutely convinced. The Bible says it. We are not destined to wrath. So therefore, nothing in the tribulation is going to matter to us, right? And here's the problem with that. If you're wrong, then you're telling a bunch of people, you're giving a bunch of people permission to not do anything to prepare for the hardest, worst time period that this earth has ever seen. And you're saying to them, don't worry, you're going to get a get out of jail free card. You're not going to have to worry about any of it. Think that through for a minute. What if you tell your kids and your friends and your family that they don't have to go through something and then they have to? This is what drives us crazy about the weather. Right? In the winter around here, when the weatherman says, don't worry, it's not going to snow, and we get 6 feet of snow, that's a problem. We learn to depend on the weather people to tell us things so we can get ready and be prepared for things. What happens when they're wrong? Well, real damage is done. Right? People can die. 37 or more people died in Buffalo this last winter off of 6, 7, 8 feet of snow moments. And when the weatherman says, hey, don't worry about it, and then we need to worry about it, there's a problem. When the spiritual people say, don't worry, you don't need to worry about any of this. We're going to be long gone before things get bad here. What happens if things get bad? So I want to end it right there. Tomorrow night, I want to pick up on what are you doing to prepare for all of this? Right? Let me wrap this up in a bow this week. You can skip all the rest of the signs. You can say, yep, I know all the signs, all that stuff. But I do want you to think about tonight, and I do want you to chew on. What if your belief is wrong? What if you're believing in something that isn't right, and you're teaching people that? Are you preparing your friends and your family for that which might come? I don't know how to say it. I say it at my church, and I say it a lot. Probably ad nauseam. People are asking me to be quiet, probably. But let me say it one more time. The Bible talks about 4 to 5+ billion people dying during Revelation. Right? That is a lot of people. A third of the population here, a fourth of the population here. Just talks about a lot of people dying. That is a lot of people. Right? You might want to make sure that what you believe is right before you end up having to do a bunch of apologies and a bunch of things where you don't care about signs because you're not going to have to worry about it. Why did Paul talk to a bunch of Christians about worrying about signs? Why did Jesus talk to his disciples about knowing the signs if they're not going to be around? I'm not telling you that I have a definitive, here's the deal on that, because here is my deal on that. Man, I pray every day for a pre-trib rapture. But I'm preparing for what if that's not a true statement, right? Let me leave you with this in addition. When Jesus came to earth, he was met by a group of people that were absolutely sure he was coming as a conquering king. He was going to turn tables on the Romans, and it was going to be great. And he didn't. They were wrong. They kept telling people, this is what the Messiah is going to be about. And they were wrong. And look at what happened. Right? They led a bunch of people astray. We need to be careful. We need to think through things. Be definitive on the things that God tells you about, because you've been smart enough to say, God, I don't know. Give me wisdom in this area. Chew on that for a little bit. We'll see you tomorrow night, Nightly Nonsense.